We're joined on the phone by Mideast expert and advisor to Congress, Walid Phares. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
At least 30 people were killed this weekend in Cairo. Is the Arab Spring there on the verge of collapse? And what happens if the largest nation in the Arab world erupts?
Well, Egypt is erupting today. The Arab Spring, unfortunately, so far has failed in Egypt. The players are the military council, which is trying hard to maintain as much power as it can into their own hands. The Muslim Brotherhood, who are trying to transfer that power from the military council into their hands and establish an Islamic state or Islamist state. And then the rest of Egyptians, the majority of Egyptians who are civil society, youth, seculars, women, and Copts. Unfortunately, over the past few months, the Muslim Brotherhood and the military have cut a deal. Now the deal is off. So the Muslim Brotherhood mobilized the youth again to demonstrate against the military, and then cut another deal with the military. And now the youth find themselves in Tahrir Square, in Cairo, battling the military. At the end of the day, it is really the Muslim Brotherhood who are taking advantage of the process, and we may end up seeing in Egypt a few months from now or next year as an Islamist state.
That's dangerous, isn't it?
That would be very dangerous because Egypt being the largest Arab country, but also Egypt being the main partner of Israel in the peace process, Israel being a main partner to the United States in the region, all of that could change. The peace process will be impacted. Our alliance with the Egyptian government and military can change. And the Muslim Brotherhood are not going to be only in Egypt, they're going to be across the region. So geopolitics will change in the region as a result of the failure of the Arab Spring in Egypt.
The second son of Muammar Gaddafi was captured last week. It seems that's the end of the Libyan regime, but many people are concerned about the Islamist elements among the new governing coalition. How worrisome is that?
Very much. Indeed, with the capture of Saif al-Islam al-Gaddafi, the Gaddafi regime is over, and that's a good thing. But to be over at the hands of whom is the big question. Not at the hands of civil society, as you mentioned. It's going to be at the hands of the Islamists. Two very concerning issues have happened. The president of the Transitional National Council, Mr. Abdel Jalil, has declared openly a few weeks ago that Libya is going to be under Shariah law, therefore becoming an Islamist state. Militias on the ground are spreading throughout Libya and are funded by petrodollars.
Since Libya, as you mentioned, is now under Sharia law, does that pose a threat to U.S. interests?
Well, when Libya will become under Sharia law, the problem is that the younger generations will be basically in madrasas. And we know that the jihadists will recruit from those madrasas and then will create a jihadi movement in Libya, which on the medium and long term will pose as much threat to the region, to the United States, to the Europeans, in as much as the Taliban graduating from the madrasas in Waziristan has posed the same threat against the West. There will be a redux if we are not smart enough to reverse this and ally ourselves with the seculars and the moderates in Libya. We're too late. We tried to drive from behind, maneuver from behind, and now the results are dramatic.
Was it a failure of U.S. intelligence not to see Sharia law coming there? And are we now worse off than we were when Muammar Gaddafi was in charge?
Yes, it was a strategic analysis failure. The problem is that we may have had collections of information that was accurate. The problem has been in Washington that the administration's evaluation and the expertise offered to the administration for that evaluation have not been correct. And therefore, now we have a situation in Libya and in North Africa whereby the Islamists, who has been coined and described as moderates and as reformists, those Islamists are going to emphasize the jihadist ideology, and that will create trouble in the region.
Your forecast for Syria. Experts seem to be divided on how long the Assad family can hold out. What's your take?
I think the Assad regime on the long run is doomed because the Syrian people, rejected Assad regime. The problem is how long will that last? Well, because we are withdrawing from Iraq abruptly, because we have not actually contained Hezbollah in Lebanon, Assad regime is going to be receiving in few weeks, few months from now, continuous support from Iran through Iraq and from Hezbollah through the borders with Syria. So we are going to be witnessing a long confrontation between the regime and the Syrian opposition because we have been very late in intervening in bringing down Assad when Assad was suppressing his people.
As you well know, events seem to be pointing toward an eventual strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, most likely by the Israelis. Why do you think Iran is stubbornly pursuing a nuclear arsenal, and does it not at all fear the Obama administration's possible response?
You know, all indicates in Tehran that the assessment of the Iranian regime is that they do not fear an Obama administration serious, strategic work on crumbling the regime, including strikes, including moving task forces, for very evident reasons. If they look to their west, they see us withdrawing abruptly from Iraq in weeks. If they look to their east, they know that we are trying to engage the Taliban to withdraw from Afghanistan. If they look to their south, we are not mobilizing our task forces to contain the Iranians. And if they hear the speeches coming out of Washington, when there were uprisings in the streets of Tehran, as in June of 2009, they hear, word from the administration that we are not interested in supporting the Iranian opposition. So if I am the Iranian regime, I wouldn't be worried.
And finally, Dr. Phares, if we ask you to gaze into your crystal ball for a moment, what do you think the Middle East is going to look like at this time next year when we have our presidential election?
Within the forthcoming year, if the American administration, if the Obama administration doesn't change strategic direction in Washington, we're going to have the Muslim Brotherhood seizing Egypt. We're going to have the Salafi Islamists seizing Libya, the Nahda Party trying to control Tunisia. We're going to have Hezbollah in Lebanon. We're going to have Iranian influence in Iraq. We're going to have Iranian intervention and destabilization of Eastern Arabia. The Middle East 1 year from now is going to look much more dangerous than ever before.
Walid Phares, as always, thanks so much for your expertise, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.